Dr. Vellara's crystalline fingers trembled slightly as she reviewed the data pad. For the 7th time that morning, the Galactic Confederacy Medical Board had assigned her an impossible task: compile a comprehensive biological manual for humanity, the newest species to achieve interstellar travel, and the first in 300 years. To be granted provisional membership in the Confederacy. Impossible, she muttered, her translator picking up the subsonic frequencies of her native Kryn language and converting them to galactic standard. Absolutely impossible. The problem wasn't a lack of data. Quite the opposite. In the 6 months since humanity had made official contact with Confederacy scouts, medical teams had collected enough biological samples, scans, and observational reports to fill a small archive. The problem was that none of it made sense. Vellara's dorsal crest flared in frustration as she pulled up yet another contradictory report. According to Dr. Thelman's notes from the initial contact team, humans maintained a core body temperature of 37 degrees Celsius, hot enough to denature proteins in most species. Yet they functioned perfectly at this temperature. More than perfectly. They thrived. Dr. Vellara, a voice interrupted her spiraling thoughts. She looked up to see Commander Joroth, the station's administrator, standing in her lab doorway. His forearms gestured in the Vren sign for apology. I know you're busy with the human documentation project, but we have a situation. What kind of situation? Vellara minimized her screens and stood, her segmented legs clicking against the metal floor. The kind that involves one of our human guests. Joroth's skin rippled with colors that suggested both confusion and concern. Medical Bay 3, you should see this yourself. The walk to the medical bay took less than 3 minutes. But Joroth used every second to brief her. The human specialist Marcus Chen was participating in routine gravity training. When the simulator malfunctioned, he fell approximately 6 meters onto a reinforced deck plate. Vellara's crest went rigid with alarm. That's a fatal height for most species. Even Vren bones would shatter at that impact force. Yes, Joroth agreed as they entered the medical bay. That's what we thought too. The scene inside defied everything Vellara had learned in her 40 years of xenobiology. Specialist Chen sat on an examination platform, very much alive and apparently annoyed. Dr. Ferrin, a Scylla physician with excellent credentials, was attempting to run a bone density scan while the human squirmed impatiently. I'm telling you, I'm fine, Chen was saying. I've had worse falls skateboarding. Just let me sign the waiver and get back to my shift. You fell 6 meters. Dr. Ferrin's tentacles quivered with distress. You should have multiple fractures, internal bleeding, possibly organ rupture. Yet the scans show only minor soft tissue bruising. Chen shrugged, a gesture Vellara had learned meant anything from agreement to dismissal to uncertainty. Humans are pretty durable. We evolved to be persistence hunters. Remember, we had to be able to take a beating and keep going. Vellara approached slowly, her scientific curiosity overriding her shock. Specialist Chen, may I examine the scan results? Sure, Doc. Maybe you can convince Dr. Tentacles here that I'm not about to spontaneously die. She ignored the inappropriate nickname and pulled up the medical data on her personal pad. What she saw made her question her own eyesight. The human skeleton was indeed intact, more than intact. The bones showed a density rating that shouldn't be possible for a bipedal creature of Chen's mass. The internal skin revealed something even more disturbing. The human's cardiovascular system was operating at what should have been crisis levels. Your heart rate is 180 beats per minute, Velara observed, her voice steady despite her racing thoughts. That's 3 times your resting rate. Are you in distress? Chen laughed, another versatile human sound that could mean joy, nervousness, or mockery. Oh, that? Yeah. That's just adrenaline. Fight or flight response. My body dumped a bunch of chemicals into my bloodstream when I fell. Makes everything work faster and stronger. Pretty useful when you're trying not to die. But you're not trying not to die. Dr. Ferrin protested. You're sitting calmly on my examination table complaining about missing your shift. Well, yeah, now. But my body doesn't know that. It'll calm down in like 20 minutes. Adrenaline's great stuff, makes you stronger, faster, dulls pain. We basically have a built-in performance enhancer that activates when we're in danger. Velara and Dr. Ferrin exchanged glances. The Scylla physician's skin had gone pale blue, the color of deep confusion. Let me understand this correctly, Velara said carefully. When faced with physical trauma, your body deliberately accelerates your metabolism, increases your strength, and reduces your pain sensitivity temporarily? Yep. Well, not just trauma. Any kind of stress, really. Could be physical danger, could be emotional stress, could be really intense exercise. The body doesn't always know the difference. Chen stretched his arms above his head, and Velara heard several distinct popping sounds from his joints. See, already feeling better. Adrenaline's probably fading now. Impossible, Dr. Ferrin whispered. No species can simply activate enhanced performance on demand. The energy requirements alone, oh, we pay for it, Chen assured him. Once the adrenaline wears off, I'm going to be exhausted and probably starving. That's why I want to get back to my quarters before it hits. I've got a stash of protein bars and I'm planning to sleep for like 12 hours. This casual revelation opened entirely new questions in Velara's mind. You can choose when to sleep. Your sleep cycle isn't regulated by circadian rhythms? Chen looked at her like she'd asked if water was wet. I mean, we have circadian rhythms, but we can fight them if we need to. You guys can't. How did you handle shift work or emergencies? We don't sleep during our active periods, Jorath interjected. Our bodies enter rest states at predetermined intervals based on our homeworld's rotation. We can delay sleep slightly, but not by more than a few hours without experiencing severe cognitive impairment. Ha! Weird. Chen hopped off the examination table. Humans can stay awake for days if we have to. It sucks and we get loopy, but it's doable. The record's like 11 days, I think. Or was it 14? Anyway, nobody died. Velara's crest was vibrating so intensely she thought it might detach. You're telling me a human remained conscious and functional for 11 days, without entering a rest state? Well, functional is debatable by the end. Guy was hallucinating pretty bad. But yeah, he lived. Chen headed toward the door, then paused. Oh, And about the temperature thing in your questionnaire, most humans are comfortable anywhere from about 18 to 27 degrees Celsius. We've got really good thermal regulation. Sweating when it's hot, shivering when it's cold. We can survive in way wider ranges, though. I've got buddies who've done training exercises in -40 and +50-degree temperatures. He left the medical bay wishing another peculiar human behavior, leaving 3 stunned xenobiologists in his wake. "I need coffee," Velara announced. "What's coffee?" Dr. Ferrin asked. "A human stimulant beverage. I've been studying it. The humans consume it daily, sometimes multiple times per day." She pulled up her notes on her pad. Coffee contains a compound called caffeine and alkaloid. That's toxic to 17 Confederacy species. Humans drink it for pleasure and to enhance alertness. They voluntarily consume toxins. Joroth's skin had shifted to orange, the Vren color of alarm. Not just coffee. Humans consume alcohol, a literal poison that impairs cognitive function. They eat capsaicin, which activates pain receptors. They ingest nicotine, theobromine, various psychoactive compounds. Velara's voice trailed off. "Commander, I don't think I can complete this manual in the time frame the medical board specified." "Why not?" "Because every answer leads to 5 more questions. Human biology doesn't just break our understanding of xenobiology, it shatters it completely. They're walking contradictions. They're simultaneously fragile and nearly indestructible. They can't naturally produce essential vitamins, but can process deadly toxins. They have terrible natural weapons, but are apex predators." There, an alarm klaxon cut through her words. The station's emergency system activated, bathing the corridor in red light. "Hull breach. Section 7, the automated voice announced. All personnel evacuate to designated safe zones." This is not a drill. Velara felt her legs lock up, a natural Kryn response to danger. She watched as Dr. Ferrin's tentacles wrapped protectively around his central mass, and Commander Joroth's skin flashed through a rapid sequence of alarm colors. But from down the corridor came the sound of running footsteps. Multiple humans appeared, moving toward the breach rather than away from it. Chen was among them, no longer looking tired. His eyes were bright, focused, and his movements were precise despite the apparent chaos. "Sir, what are you doing?" Joroth called out. "You need to evacuate." Chen barely paused. "Hull breach means someone might be trapped in 7. We're getting them out. The section is depressurizing. You'll die. Maybe. But we've got emergency suits and about 4 minutes before it's completely vented. That's plenty of time." He flashed a grin that showed his small, omnivorous teeth. "Don't worry, Commander. This is what humans do." Velara watched the humans disappear around the corner, running toward mortal danger, while every other species on the station was paralyzed by appropriate fear or fleeing. To safety, she turned to her pad and began a new entry in her report. Preliminary finding. She dictated, "Humans possess a fundamental dysfunction in their threat assessment and self-preservation protocols. When faced with danger, they appear to become more active, not less. Their stress response enhances rather than inhibits performance. Recommend extensive psychological evaluation to determine If this represents a species-wide neural disorder, she paused, then added quietly, or perhaps humans simply haven't learned that some things are impossible, and that ignorance might be their greatest strength. The klaxon stopped. A moment later, Commander Jorath's communicator chirped. Breach sealed. The report came through. Human team successfully extracted 3 Kryn workers from Section 7. No casualties. Minor injuries only. Velara looked at her unfinished report and realized she had vastly underestimated the complexity of her assignment. Understanding human biology wouldn't just require new data. It would require an entirely new framework for what was biologically possible. Dr. Velara had commandeered conference. Room 3B for what she was calling structured human observation sessions, and what the humans themselves were calling the weird alien interview thing. She'd spent the past 3 weeks since the Hull breach incident conducting formal research, and every session left her more confused than the last. Today's subject was Dr. Sarah Okonkwo, a human xenobotanist who'd been assigned to Unity 7's hydroponics bay. The woman sat across from Velara with the relaxed posture humans adopted when they felt safe. Spine curved, limbs loose, an expression of mild amusement on her face. "So," Sarah said, accepting a cup of the human beverage called tea, "what impossibility are we investigating today?" Velara's crest twitched with what might have been humor. She'd learned that humans appreciated directness. Your immune system. Specifically, how it hasn't killed you yet. Sarah laughed, that multi-purpose vocalization that Velara was slowly learning to interpret. "That's a new one. Usually people ask about the sleep thing or why we eat poison for fun. I've documented those phenomena extensively. Your immune system, however, represents a paradox I cannot resolve." Velara pulled up a holographic display between them. 3 days ago, you were exposed to Theta 7 spores in the hydroponics bay. These spores are harmless to most species. You, however, developed what you called allergies. Yeah, that was miserable. Couldn't stop sneezing for 6 hours? Your body mounted a massive immune response to a non-threatening organism. You experienced inflammation, mucus production, elevated histamine levels, and respiratory distress. Your immune system was essentially attacking you. "Welcome to having allergies," Sarah said dryly. "About 20% of humans deal with it. Our immune systems are a bit overzealous sometimes." Velara gestured at another data stream. "Yet when you were accidentally exposed to Vilnoran bacteria last week, a pathogen that causes fatal blood infections in 4 species, your body eliminated it within 18 hours. No symptoms, no treatment required. The bacteria simply died. Fever killed them, probably. My temperature spiked to 39.5 Celsius according to medical. That's enough to cook most bacteria that aren't adapted to humans. That's my point exactly." Velara's crest stood fully erect. "Your immune system ignores actual threats or overreacts to harmless stimuli, yet somehow you survive." How Sarah leaned back, considering. "I think you're looking at it wrong, Doc. Our immune system isn't precise, it's aggressive. It's like having a guard dog that bites everything that comes through the door, including the mail carrier. Sure, sometimes it attacks the wrong things, but it also keeps out the actual burglars. But the energy cost is worth it, Sarah interrupted gently. Humans evolved in a disease soup. Earth has more pathogens than any world in the Confederacy. Our immune system had to be strong enough to handle everything, which means it became this scorched earth system that just kills everything it doesn't recognize. Yeah. Sometimes that includes pollen or cat hair or whatever, but mostly it keeps us alive. Velara made notes, her fingers dancing across her data pad. Dr. Okonkwo, are you aware that human children consume dirt? Yeah, that's normal. Helps build immunity. Why? Because dirt contains thousands of potentially harmful organisms. Children of every other species who consume soil require immediate medical intervention. Human children build immunity. Your young deliberately expose themselves to pathogens as a survival strategy. When you put it that way, it does sound pretty metal. Sarah sipped her tea. But yeah, that's how our immune system learns. Controlled exposure. It's the whole principle behind vaccines. Teach the body to recognize a threat before encountering the real thing. Vaccines, Velara repeated. Yes, the concept of deliberately infecting yourself with a weakened pathogen to prevent future infection. We've been analyzing human medical history. This practice saved millions of human lives. Billions, probably, if you count over the centuries. And it works by exploiting your immune system's aggressive memory response. Velara's crest tilted thoughtfully. Your body remembers every pathogen it's ever encountered and maintains a permanent defensive protocol against it. Pretty much. Some vaccines need boosters, but yeah, that's the idea. The door chimed. Velara looked up to see Specialist Chen entering. Accompanied by another human she didn't recognize, a tall male with dark skin, and intricate patterns shaved into his hair. Sorry we're late, Doc, Chen said. Had to finish the safety check on the new gravity nets. This is Lieutenant James Morrison. He volunteered for your study. Morrison nodded at Velara. Then his eyes locked onto Sarah's teacup. Is that actual tea? From Earth? Ceylon Black. Want some? Stars. Yes. I haven't had real tea in months. Velara watched with fascination as the two humans engaged in what they called tea preparation. Ritual. A precise series of steps involving water temperature, steeping time, and the addition of various substances. It was, she'd learned, one of hundreds of human social rituals centered around food and beverage consumption. Lieutenant Morrison, Velara began once the tea ceremony concluded. I understand you were involved in the recent equipment malfunction in Engineering Bay 5? Morrison's expression shifted to something Velara had learned to recognize. Embarrassment. Yeah, that was not my finest moment, according to the incident report. You lifted a 300-kilogram conduit assembly off Ensign Tarek. When it fell during installation, Tarek's a good kid. Couldn't just let him get crushed. The report notes that you sustained significant muscle tears in both arms, herniated to spinal discs, and cracked 3 ribs. Velara pulled up the medical scans. Yet you remained conscious and functional long enough to secure the conduit and extract Ensign Tarek from danger. How Morrison and Chen exchanged glances. Adrenaline, they said simultaneously. I've studied your adrenaline response, Velara protested. It enhances performance, yes, but it shouldn't allow you to ignore catastrophic injury and exceed your normal strength capacity by an estimated 40%. Morrison said, understanding dawning on his face. You're talking about hysterical strength. That's different from regular adrenaline. That's the emergency override. Emergency override. Chen jumped in. Okay, so normally our brain limits how much strength we can use, right? Because if we used our full muscle capacity all the time, we'd tear ourselves apart. But in extreme situations, like someone's about to die, the brain goes screw the safety limits and lets us access our full strength. You have voluntary control over this? No. Both humans said quickly. It's not voluntary at all. Morrison continued. It's pure instinct. Life or death situation. Someone you care about in danger. And suddenly you can do things that should be impossible. I've heard stories of mothers lifting cars off their kids. Soldiers carrying wounded bodies 3 times their weight. People breaking down doors with their bare hands. And the cost? Velara asked quietly. Morrison gestured to his torso. 3 weeks in medical rehab. I basically shredded my own muscles. Would do it again, though. Terek's alive. Velara added this to her growing list of human biological mysteries. Your species has evolved a mechanism that allows temporary access to destructive levels of strength, despite the guaranteed severe injury that results. This shouldn't exist. Natural selection should have eliminated such a dangerous trait. Should have, Sarah agreed. But it didn't. Because the humans who could pull off impossible feats when their tribe was in danger, those were the ones who survived and had kids. We descended from the emergency override people. The conversation was interrupted by Velara's pad chimming with an urgent message. She scanned it quickly, her crest flattening with concern. There's been an incident in the xenobiology lab. Dr. Ferrin has been exposed to Corvin's spores. He's going into anaphylactic shock. All 3 humans were on their feet instantly. Where's medical? Morrison demanded. Level 3, but you can't. They were already moving. Velara scrambled to follow, her segmented legs struggling to match the human's loping run. By the time she reached the xenobiology lab, the humans had already assessed the situation. Dr. Ferrin was on the floor, his tentacles spasming, his skin cycling through distress colors. Corvin's spores caused severe allergic reactions. Insular physiology fatal within minutes without intervention. Chen, get medical on the line. Morrison barked. Sarah, what do we need? Sarah was already scanning the lab's medical kit. Antihistamine, bronchodilator, and we need to get his breathing stabilized. Silith respiratory system is in the tertiary tentacle cluster here. She pointed. How do you know Silith anatomy? Velara gasped. I read. Now help me or get out of the way. Velara watched in stunned silence as the 3 humans worked with practiced efficiency. They'd transformed from casual, tea-drinking researchers into a coordinated emergency response team in seconds. Chen maintained communication with the medical bay, relaying Dr. Ferrin's vital signs. Morrison stabilized the Silith physician's body. Sarah administered medication with steady hands, her earlier nervousness completely absent. Heart rates dropping, Chen reported. Respiratory function improving. Good, Sarah muttered. Come on, Ferrin. Stay with us. The medical team arrived for minutes later to find Dr. Ferrin stable. His tentacles no longer spasming, his color returning to normal. The lead physician, a Kryn like Velara, examined the scene with obvious confusion. What happened here? Humans happened, Velara said softly, later that evening. After Dr. Ferrin had been cleared by medical and released to rest, Velara found the 3 humans in the station's observation lounge. They were sharing something called pizza. Another Earth food that Velara had learned was essentially bread, sauce, cheese, and various toppings that ranged from vegetables to processed meats. May I join you? She asked. Sure, Doc, Chen said, gesturing to an empty seat. Want some pizza? It's pepperoni. I cannot digest mammalian proteins, but thank you. She settled into the chair, adjusting her position to accommodate her different skeletal structure. I wanted to thank you. What you did for Dr. Ferrin today was basic emergency response, Morrison interrupted. Anyone would have done the same. No, Velara said firmly. Anyone would not have. When I saw Dr. Ferrin in distress, my body locked up. It's a Kryn survival response freeze. When confronted with danger, assess the threat, then flee if necessary. Most Confederacy species have similar protocols, but you 3 run toward danger, assessed the situation in seconds, and executed a coordinated response without any apparent fear. Oh, we were afraid, Sarah assured her. My hands are still shaking, see? She held up a hand that indeed trembled slightly. But being afraid and being paralyzed are different things. Humans feel fear. We just don't always listen to it. That seems evolutionarily disadvantageous. Chen grinned. Maybe. But it's also why we're here, talking to aliens. Millions of light years from our home world. We saw a universe full of dangers and said neat. Let's go poke it. Velara's crest rippled with something that might have been admiration. I need to ask you all something. It's for my report to the medical board, but it's also personal curiosity. Shoot, Morrison said. Your species possesses numerous biological features that should make you fragile. You lack natural armor, natural weapons, enhanced senses. You have no venom, no camouflage, no telepathic abilities. Your children are helpless for years. You require constant food and water. You can die from thousands of common pathogens. You overheat easily, freeze easily, and are vulnerable to radiation, toxins, and physical trauma. We're sounding better and better, Sarah joked. And yet, Velara continued, you survived. Not just survived, you thrived. You became your planet's apex species, developed advanced technology, achieved interstellar travel. And now you're saving members of species that are biologically superior to you. In almost every measurable way. How the 3 humans looked at each other. It was Morrison who finally spoke. Because we're stubborn, because we adapt, Sarah added. We can't change our biology quickly, but we can change our behavior, our tools, our strategies. We're not the strongest or fastest or smartest creatures, but we're the best at figuring things out. And because we're pack animals, Chen finished. Humans don't survive alone. We survive together. We carry our wounded, We share our resources. We teach our young. We remember our dead. Every human achievement is really a collaborative achievement. We are stronger together than any of us could ever be alone. Velara made notes. But she also simply listened. These weren't just data points, they were insights into a species that defied every biological rule. She'd been taught. One more question, she said. The coffee, the alcohol, the capsaicin, why do you consume toxins recreationally? All three humans grinned. Because it feels good, Sarah said simply. Coffee wakes us up. Alcohol helps us relax. Spicy food gives us a little thrill. We like pushing our limits, even in small ways, even when it might harm you. Especially then, Chen agreed. Humans have this thing where we like to test boundaries. How hot can we make this food? How fast can we go? How far can we explore? It's not always smart, but it's very human. Velara closed her data pad. I don't think the medical board is going to believe my report. Why not? Morrison asked. Because it reads less like a biological study and more like a list of impossibilities. Your species shouldn't work. You're a collection of contradictions held together by determination and stubbornness. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said about humans. Sarah laughed as Velara left the observation lounge that night. She realized her report had fundamentally changed. She'd started this project trying to catalog human biology. Now she understood that human biology couldn't be separated from human behavior, human psychology, human culture. They were a package dealer species that had turned their biological disadvantages into advantages. Through sheer creativity and cooperation, her preliminary conclusion was taking shape. Humans weren't biologically superior. They were biologically persistent. And in a universe full of superior beings, persistence might be the most powerful adaptation of all. She just hoped the Confederacy Council would understand that before they made any decisions about humanity's future in the stars. The Galactic Confederacy Council chambers were designed to accommodate 17 different species simultaneously, each with their own environmental requirements, communication methods, and spatial needs. It was an architectural marvel of inclusive design. It was also, Dr. Velara thought nervously, an absolutely terrifying place to present research that might reshape the Confederacy's entire understanding of biology. She stood at the central podium, her crystalline fingers trembling slightly as she prepared to deliver her findings. Around her, in a circular arrangement that put her at the focal point of everyone's attention, sat the council representatives. Some floated in specialized atmospheric chambers. Others rested in pools of liquid. A few existed partially in dimensions she couldn't fully perceive. And somewhere in the observation gallery above, she knew, were the humans, watching, waiting to learn their fate. Counselors, she began, her voice amplified by the chamber's translation matrix. I have spent for months conducting the most comprehensive study of human biology ever undertaken by the Confederacy. My findings are unprecedented. Supreme Counselor Thrain, a massive volith whose crystalline body refracted light into rainbow patterns, spoke first. Their voice resonated through the chamber like singing glass. We have reviewed your preliminary reports, Dr. Velara. Your conclusions seem highly improbable. humans that can voluntarily override pain responses, immune systems that function through controlled chaos, stress hormones that enhance rather than inhibit performance. I understand your skepticism, Supreme Counselor. I shared it initially, but the evidence is overwhelming and reproducible. Velara brought up her first holographic display, a rotating model of human musculoskeletal structure. Let me begin with their physical capabilities. For the next hour, she walked the council through her findings. She showed them scans of human bones that could absorb impacts that would shatter other species. She demonstrated their thermoregulatory system that could function across temperature ranges that would kill most Confederacy members. She explained their cardiovascular efficiency, their neural plasticity, their remarkable healing capacity, but their most significant advantage, Velara continued, pulling up a new display, isn't any single biological system. It's their adaptability. Humans can function in environments that would be fatal to most of us, not because they're biologically suited to those environments, but because they adapt their behavior and create tools to compensate for their limitations. Counselor Verix, a Sylph elder who had survived 3 galactic cycles, extended a questioning tentacle. Dr. Velara, you speak of adaptability as though it were unique. All species adapt. Not like this. Velara brought up footage from Unity 7. This is from 3 weeks ago. Engineering Section 12 experienced a catastrophic coolant leak. Temperatures dropped to -40°C in under 2 minutes. The section should have been evacuated. All personnel withdrawn until containment could be established. The footage showed chaos alarms blaring, frost forming on every surface, and 3 figures moving through the freezing corridor instead of away from it. Those are humans? Counselor Thrain asked. Specialists Chen, Morrison, and Dr. Okonkwo. Yes. They were off-duty and unarmed when the emergency occurred. Velara let the footage play. The council watched in silence as the 3 humans fashioned makeshift protective gear from emergency blankets, moved through the frozen section, and manually sealed the coolant line using nothing but standard tools. And apparent disregard for their own safety, they sustained frostbite, hypothermia, and respiratory damage from inhaling supercooled air. Velara narrated. They were treated and released from medical within 2 days. When asked why they entered a deadly environment without proper equipment or authorization, their response was, she pulled up the official incident report. Someone had to fix it. A murmur ran through the council chambers, translated into 17 different expressions of surprise. This is what I mean by adaptability. Velara continued. Humans don't wait for the perfect solution. They improvise. They make do. They see a problem, and their immediate response is, how can I fix this with what I have right now? Counselor Dravik, a Vren military commander whose skin currently displayed tactical assessment patterns, leaned forward. Dr. Velara, your report also contains some concerning observations about human social behavior, specifically their effect on other species. Velara had been dreading this part. Yes, Counselor, I believe the phenomenon you're referring to has been termed cultural contamination. In some circles, explain. She took a deep breath, a gesture she'd learned from the humans. Humans form emotional bonds with remarkable speed and intensity. They've been on Unity 7 for only 6 months. Yet they've already established what they call friendships with dozens of station personnel. These friendships appear to transcend professional relationships and become genuine emotional attachments. This is a problem, Counselor Verix asked. It becomes one when those attachments begin to influence behavior and decision-making. Velara pulled up a new series of reports. Since the humans arrived at Unity 7, we've seen unprecedented changes in station culture. Personnel from species that traditionally avoid physical contact are now engaging in human-style greetings like handshakes and stars help us hugs. The station commissary has begun stocking Earth foods and beverages. 14 different species have started consuming coffee. Despite its toxic properties to most of them, you consider cultural exchange to be contamination. Thrain's voice carried a note of disapproval. No, Supreme Counselor, I consider it evidence of humans' remarkable social influence. They don't just adapt to our cultures, they cause us to adapt to theirs. And they do it without apparent effort or intention. Velara highlighted a specific section of her report. 3 weeks ago, Ensign Tarek Akrin, like myself, was trapped under fallen equipment. His injuries were severe, but not immediately fatal. Standard Kryn protocol in such situations is to wait for properly trained rescue personnel. But the humans intervened, Dravik said. Clearly having read this section already, Lieutenant Morrison lifted 300 kilograms of equipment off Ensign Tarek, suffering severe injuries in the process. This action violated numerous safety protocols. It was reckless, dangerous, and completely unnecessary from a logical standpoint. Velara paused. It also saved Ensign Tarek's life. He would have died before rescue teams arrived. And this troubles you. What troubles me, Velara said carefully, is that Ensign Tarek has since adopted human behavioral patterns. He now takes unnecessary risks to help others. He's requested transfer to emergency response training. When I asked him why, he said she checked her notes. Morrison taught me that sometimes the right thing to do is the dangerous thing. He's not alone. I've documented similar behavioral changes in 47 station personnel across 12 species. The council chamber erupted in discussion. Velara waited for the translation matrix to settle before continuing. Counselors, I believe we're facing a unique situation. Humans are infectious not biologically, but socially. Their courage spreads. Their stubbornness becomes determination in those around them. Their refusal to accept limitations inspires others to push their own boundaries. They're changing us, not through force or manipulation, but simply by being themselves. And you view this as a threat? Thrain asked. I view it as a reality we must acknowledge. The question isn't whether humans will influence the Confederacy, they already are. The question is whether that influence is beneficial or dangerous. Counselor Dravik's skin shifted to a deep tactical red. There is another concern your report raises, Dr. Velara. You've documented humans' combat capabilities, their aggression response, their capacity for violence. The hull breach incident, the coolant leak, the rescue of Dr. Ferrin in every crisis situation. Humans responded with immediate, decisive action that often involved risk to themselves. This could make them valuable allies. It could also make them dangerous enemies. The chamber fell silent. This was the question that had haunted Velara since she began her research. Were humans a threat? Counselor Dravik, I've observed humans for months in various situations, routine, stressful, and life-threatening. Yes, they're capable of violence. Yes, their combat instincts are formidable. But I've never seen them initiate aggression. Every act of violence I've documented was defensive, protecting themselves or others from immediate harm that we know of, Dravik countered. Human history includes countless wars, genocides, atrocities. Their own planet was divided into competing nations for most of their history. Was divided. Velara emphasized. Past tense. Humans unified their world. Before achieving interstellar traveler requirement for Confederacy membership. And yes, their history is violent. But it's also a history of progress, cooperation, and remarkable compassion. For every war, there are examples of humans risking everything to save strangers. For every atrocity, there are humans who stood against it at great personal cost.